The Channel Pro Network presents IT Nightmares with Justin Esgar and guest Eric Weast. Episode 4, The Handoff Horror.
What's up, everybody? Justin here, and welcome to another episode of IT Nightmares, a video series I'm hosting with partnership with the Channel Pro Network. Today, my guest is Eric Weast. He is the president of ECW Network and IT Solutions. He's been in the business for 22 years. He loves rock climbing. Eric, thanks so much for being here. Why don't you give everybody just like a one line about who you are and because I know nothing about rock climbing, the biggest boulder you've ever climbed.
All right. Hey, I'm Eric Weast. I've been the president of ECW Network and IT Solutions for quite a while. We do managed IT services, managed cybersecurity services, and upcoming is managed AI, cybersecurity, and governance services.
Nice. All right. So the show is IT Nightmares. You've been around a long time. I'm sure you've had many, like all of us have. What is your IT nightmare that you walked into?
Well, this was a while ago, so we can talk about it. NDAs and whatnot have expired, but once upon a time, we had a customer that we were offboarding out of our choice. They were not really a fit for us, and we had decided to take them out of service. We gave them, time so they could select their new provider, and so they did. That new provider was all over the place in terms of their onboarding, and we were kind of just along for the ride. We wanted to kind of separate ways, but then do it where the client was still left in a good spot and everything was smooth. But it turned out to kind of become a nightmare where during the offboarding process, they got ransomware.
That's never good. All right. So what happened? Did you guys step in to help? Did you just pin it on the new guys? What's the story here?
Well, yeah. So I guess the story was, we were trying to coordinate offboarding in kind of like a cohesive method, but they were kind of picking the steps that they wanted to do first that were easier for them. One of the steps that they picked was the customer had a large amount of data, so they wanted to leave the backups with us and then switch to the EDR first. So we had coordinated to a specific time to remove our agents' EDR, and then they would roll theirs over the top. There's about, I think that there was about 60-ish computers in this particular deployment, and then they loaded their EDR on 60-ish with the exception of 2 computers. One of those computers, the user behind it clicked a link in their email, and that happened to detonate, I think it was LockCrypt at the time.
That's an absolute crazy situation, like letting that new provider dictate. So clearly there was a lesson to be had here. I'm assuming you've never offboarded another customer the same way. What is something that other MSPs who are listening, who are now like sitting at the edge of their seat being like, this is a crazy situation. What is that lesson that was taken away from this situation that others can learn from?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was highly stressful on our team because I think we were notified probably around like 7 p.m. at night that the incident happened. And, we were done for the day looking at our phones like, oh shit, and it was kind of one of those things where like, we really have to hop on this because the other provider wasn't in control of the backups. We still had those backups. So we had to, we had to kind of just suck it up, get on, and then, start restoring. I think three different servers were impacted by this, totaling roughly about 8 to 9 terabytes in data. So it wasn't just a tiny little restore that needed to be done. So we learned multiple lessons off of this. The first of which was, both when we were onboarding and offboarding, that we really needed to tighten up those processes. And if we are kind of the incumbent or the outbound provider, we need to dictate things that actually work for our organization as opposed to what's being asked of us to do.
Right.
Uh, we had since then, we've reordered kind of the way, that we do both onboardings and offboardings, where that the data protection handoff needs to happen first, before anything happens. So if you're onboarding a customer, you are obviously going to be making a ton of changes on the environment. You're going to be, modifying policies, potentially permissions, loading new software. Anything can really happen in that scenario. So it's always best to kind of like establish your safety net first and make sure that you have that sanity check before you go making all those changes, that you have basically known good things to reference back to on your side, and don't assume that the other provider has that, or will have kind of the same good graces that we had to do those restores for them on the way out.
Yeah.
Conversely speaking, on the way out, make sure that they have, those steps first. We have a full checklist that goes with both onboardings and offboardings, and everything has to kind of be done in a certain order. People own certain roles. And then we also assign basically a non-technical project manager to both aspects of onboarding and offboarding.
I mean, I know that it's true. When you onboard a customer, the second that they've signed on the dotted line, like their data is your responsibility. And I do feel like you guys went above and beyond to help out the new provider, because to be honest, if I were that customer, I would have fired that new provider, because like day one, you missed two computers and now we have this massive problem. And luckily, ECW was still around and had our backups from a provider who does outgoing, when a client leaves us or whatever it is. The first thing I say is like, we're getting rid of your data. You got to get your new provider to take care of it. And if the new provider doesn't, and we don't have it anymore, you're in this weird ambiguous space. So good on you for saving the day, sticking around and helping that customer out. And I think the big lesson here is like, make sure your contracts are tight when it comes to onboard and offboard, and exactly what that means to onboard, and what order you're going to onboard, and what your order you're going to offboard. Because if you're leaving a customer or they're leaving you, you want to wash your hands of that situation. You don't want to be involved with their stuff. And if the new company, or if they hire someone internally and messes stuff up, you don't want to be responsible for that. So there's a great lesson to be there. Eric, thanks so much. Real quick though, I know you mentioned rock climbing. I was joking around earlier. What is the biggest rock you have climbed?
Well, they're not rocks. It's mainly we live in Florida, so our mountains are scarce here.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is indoor courses. So
Oh, I
everything's
see.
kind of rated on a scale from 5, 6 all the way up to the sixes. So right now I'm on 5'11". I'm still kind of getting into the swing of things, but those are still pretty tall. They're probably about 70 feet high.
I mean, for the record, I'm only 5'10", so if you're doing a 5'11", whatever that may mean, that's good. And I do like the pun on swing of things. Eric, before we go, where can people find out more about you and ECW?
They can go to our website at ecwcomputers.com, or find me on LinkedIn at LinkedIn/IT support South Florida.
Nice. Well, that's our time. Thanks so much for being here. And for more great content, check out channelpronetworks.com.
Don't miss out on the next IT nightmares. Like and subscribe before it's too late.